Hi everyone, welcome to the 12 Days of Christmas. Happy to see everyone who either watches live or catches the replay. My name is Marissa Lovett, and I'm going to wait a few minutes for people to get here before I get started. I am a shamanic practitioner. I've been practicing on the shamanic path for 20 years, and I've been coaching for about 3 years. And I like to work with women and some men who want to integrate animistic and shamanic skills into their life to connect either with their ancestors or to have better lives. I also do some work for people who are integrating a soul retrieval or who have had a very intense dream experience or who are having problems with their dreaming or their dream lives. So I am going to be looking down a little bit. I have some notes here. I'm also going to, I may be able to see your questions or comments. If I can't, I will definitely go in afterwards and make sure that I answer everyone and get back to everyone. Because I'm happy for you to ask questions. That really helps a lot. And if you stay till the end, I will be not only offering a free gift, but I'm also offering a prize, a raffle. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to ask for some help. So if you're in a place where you can close your eyes, please go ahead and close your eyes, or if you're watching this on the replay. And I'm just going to go in and ask my helping spirits for some help. Okay, hey Kirsten, how you doing? So, basically, I just want to give you like a sort of a brief overview of what I'm going to be talking about in the this thing today. Basically, what I'm going to be talking about is are basically 3 different ideas. One of them is the idea that well, basically, what I'm doing today, is I'm going to be working on shamanic practices to protect your spirit and heal your soul in the dreamscape. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is protection and what even is shamanic dreaming. The second thing I'm going to talk about is problem experiences in the dream time, particularly nightmares. And then I'm going to finish up with some things about healing that have to do with dreaming. So basically, I did a workshop last year in the 12 Days of Christmas that was about shamanic dreaming and lucid dreaming. And this workshop, if you watch that workshop, this one is sort of going to build on that one. But I'm hoping that it will add more and go into more detail than what we were able to touch on last year. So, hey Jessica, how are you? So basically, the first part is why empower yourself to do shamanic dream work. And this kind of leads into like, what is shamanic dream work? So basically, everyone dreams. And in shamanic cultures, there's an idea that there's a part of a person's soul that goes into the other world during dreaming. But the difference between shamanic dream work and just ordinary everyday dream work is that in shamanic dreaming, you go with intent and with your helping spirits to accomplish a certain task. But in one sense, dreaming shamanically is not that much different than journeying or other types of trance states that people experience in shamanic work. And in order to experience this kind of shamanic dreaming, it's necessary to kind of get outside of your personal bubble. Like, you have to imagine that around you is like a bubble of your emotions, your physical sensations, the stuff that happens to you in your day, and your relationships. And dreaming is like a way to kind of process all of that and kind of get a report, like, how am I doing? How's my health doing? How are my relationships doing? How's my, are the routine things that I go through in a day? That kind of thing. Just processing it so that you can get up the next day. But in shamanic dreaming, your intention is to go outside of that and to basically have contact with your helping spirits, to be in the other world and to connect with helping spirits. There may be non-helping spirits that are there, other people, and other beings. And so in order to do any kind of dreaming, I feel like it's very important to have some kind of preparation. And in fact, in dreaming cultures, it's considered absolutely essential to prepare for dreaming before you even go to sleep. So one of the things that it helps to have, if you're going to do this kind of dreaming, is it helps to have a practice about clearing your energy field and kind of saying, I'm done with my day. So basically, the way that you do shamanic dream work is to kind of release your attachments to things and people and places that you may have encountered during the day. And even if you're not intending to do shamanic dream work, this practice is good in general, because it just means that you're kind of done with, your field is free, you have sovereignty over your field, it's your energy and it's not connected to other people's. I kind of discovered in a book written by a shamanic healer named Mary Shutan, a lot of people talk about cords, and usually what they mean are like long-term cords that you've had for years with like family members or old relationships or things that happened in your past. But she really introduced me to the idea that there are cords that you can pick up just when you go to the grocery store, or when you interact with a bank teller, or at your job. And so she gave a very simple affirmation that you can do at the end of the day that I've kind of changed a little bit, but I thought maybe if you're in a comfortable place, we could go ahead and try that now. So if you are in a comfortable place, just close your eyes for a minute, and I'm just going to say these words and just sort of listen while I say them. I call on divine light. Divine light fills every cell of my body. Divine light releases all cords, contracts, and negativity, and they go out, out, out to Father, Son, where they are healed and transmuted, and I am filled with radiant divine light, which heals and empowers me. Now every day when I do this, I tweak it and I add little things to it or subtract little things to it. But the idea is that if you have cords, afterwards, you should feel a little lighter, a little bit more like it's more you. You might not even be processing the day's events as much because you're not connected to them energetically. So I found that can be a helpful thing to do. I've shared it with some of my coaching clients, and they found it to be valuable. And it's just a very short practice that you can do that isn't complicated, and that might lighten up your energy field a little bit. And I try to do this before I go to sleep as part of my sort of getting ready to go to bed routine. And there are sometimes when I'm super busy and I forget. So basically I'll do it while I'm lying in bed. I might not put the clapping in, I might exhale forcefully, but it's basically the same thing. So let me take a breath and say hello. Hey Marta. Hey Angela, how are you? Hey Erica. Thank you for watching live. So this sort of cord cutting is one of my practices that I do to get ready for bed. I also, if I have really, really heavy energy, I might combine it with something called candle cleansing. And that's where I take a candle, and just imagine that this is a candle, and I just rub it all over my body, all over my energy field. And I make sure it's a small candle. Sometimes I even use a birthday candle. And I just put it in a candle holder and burn it completely. And that is, I found, has been a really wonderful and helpful way to release negativity from the day that isn't mine. and stuff that I don't want to bring with me into the dream time. Also, Itzhak Beery teaches that, and it helps if you use a green candle for that. The other thing I do sometimes is I take a shower or bathe. I like to use pink salt, a pink salt scrub, but you can combine it with essential oils like lavender is a traditional one. A very traditional way to work is, if you don't like to take flower baths, is to make a lukewarm cup of like lavender tea or chamomile tea and just like rinse it on your body as you're showering or bathing. Like that's another way you can kind of cleanse and lighten up and raise up your field so that you're more ready to go into the dream in a more clear state. And this will have like a little more relevance when I get into some of the problems with dreaming later on. So let me just see if there's any questions. Kirsten, such a lifesaver practice for dealing with chaotic astral energy out there. Thanks. Yes, it helps with that too. That was great. I've actually have a cord with someone who's come back to my life recently that I've been trying, hold on for 1 minute, to cut. Oh, great. Well, I mean, the good news is I found that if you keep doing that practice, it actually does work on some of the more long-term cords. For long-term cord cutting, I have another practice taught by Cindy Dale where you go in and address the inner child part that wants to hang on to the cord. Because there's always like two sides for me. The part of me that's hanging on and the other person who's, So it kind of goes in and addresses that. But yeah, if it's just like something, if you can get it done this way, great. Then you're doing good work. And I apologize, I am going to be looking down at notes for this. So the other thing I do, I have some practices by a man named James Andretti, who's a shamanic teacher, and he basically wrote a book called Advanced Shamanism, I think it's called. And he does a really good practice, and you can also do this when you're lying in bed. It's basically like a progressive relaxation practice, but it's combined with a wonderful, what they would call a recapitulation practice. And I think this is a word that got started by Carlos Castaneda and his people. And basically what recapitulation is it's like a daily review. You go through your day, you remember everything that you're thinking about. Like everything that's kind of going around. Like if you have a monkey mind and you tend to just have things go around and around in circles like I do sometimes, this is a really great way to release that. And so what you do is you just, while you're lying in bed, maybe after you do your progressive relaxation, you just think about the talk you had with your friend, the really cool thing that happened on social media, the weird thing that happened at work, the happy thing that, you had with a family member. And you just go through all the good and bad events that happened in the day. And I like to finish up with the positive because it just, it feels good to do that. And just release it. There's a little bit more elaborate practice to it, but even if you just do that, if you just think about them and just let them go, it's amazing how much that clears and frees up your dream time to not constantly process and chew over the day's events. And it helps get you outside your bubble and into that more transpersonal shamanic space. So after you've done all that kind of preparation stuff, you basically need to set your intention to dream. In the free gift, I'm going to be including a video that teaches some different ways to do this. But the most simple way to do it, the one that's familiar to the most people, is just to write it down on a piece of paper and put it under your pillow. If you keep your journal by your bed, you could just write it in your journal. And you just say, I want to dream about this. And that's all you have to say. Or I would like to have a dream about this. And that's setting your intention. And it's no different than if you're reading with tarot, or if you're going on a shamanic journey, or if you're throwing the runes. It's all, you know how important asking the question is. So it's basically that same thing. You set your intention to dream in shamanic dreaming. And that intention can be very broad. It can mean, show me the true nature of my helping spirits, or I want to meet a helpful ancestor, or something like that. So it's not, it doesn't always have to be something really specific. but it is important to go in with some kind of intention if you're going to do this kind of dreaming. It's also very common to work with ritual objects. I've done other trainings about working with dream crystals, and I do put a short video in the free gift about working with a dream crystal. It's very short. And people work with obsidian mirrors, and I'm gonna go into that a little later. There are bronze mirrors that are in the Siberian traditions and other, like the Korean traditions, that can be used for dreaming, although they're used also for other things. And I also use something that I just started working with last year. After I started doing ancestral healing my ancestral lines, I noticed I had a lot of grief and heavy energy in my field as part of the process. And it made my dreaming, it was a little more complicated. So my partner took a tiny piece of willow and scraped the bark off of it. And I use that now under my pillow as a ritual object to help me dream. And it's been wonderful. It really helps protect my space, and it's very easy. Many people live in a place where there's willow. And I had no idea that willow was helpful with dreaming. So the other thing that you do is you approach the dream in a very specific way. The traditions I'm familiar with, you kind of go into the dream consciously. And what I mean by that is you kind of start out in a half asleep place, and you set up the dreaming so that you go with whatever helping spirits you work with. I work with an animal, an egret, but it could just as easily be a deity, an ancestor. It doesn't matter. As long as they're positive, helpful, and empowering, that's what you need. And they've agreed to do this work with you. That's all you need to go into this work. And so basically from a half asleep hypnagogic state, I basically go into the dream, often sort of flying, and I go into the dream that way. Now, I also go in through the chakras. This is done in a couple of different cultures, and I talked about this more in the training last year that I did on the same subject. I like to go in through the throat. The Tibetans use that. Sometimes they visualize a lotus in the middle of the 5th chakra. But you can go in through your heart chakra. You can go in, there's a chakra above the head you can go in. Some people go in through their 2nd chakra, through their sexual organs. So just whatever works for you. But you're basically using this as a gateway to enter into the other world with your helping spirits by your side or merged with them. Now there's a third way to do it. This is more related to some of the practices that Huichol people do, and I think some other people do, which is where you're using a ritual object and you go into the dream with the ritual object, and when you see it in the dream, the ritual object becomes a gateway and you go through it. That's another way to get into the other world. But as you can see, you're sort of finding a way to get from being a half asleep place through the part of your dream that's about you, your personality, your life, what you did that day, and out into something a little more transpersonal, a little more connected to the other world. Let me just see if there's... Hey, Jessica. Hey, Therese. Hey, Nicole. Hey, Angela. Yeah, so let me just do this one thing about just basically an overview of shamanic dreaming. The other thing that's interesting about shamanic dreaming is that in many traditions, there's an idea that we have multiple souls. It's not really like they're separate. They're kind of combined with our bodies and with the greater soul of the world outside of us. But it's helpful for practitioners and animists to see them as separate because they do different jobs. So there's this idea that scholars call a free soul. And basically that's the one that goes dreaming, that goes journeying, that maybe even astral travels. That's the one that does that, the free soul. And so you may hear that if you read about this with other writers, they may call it that, or they may use the word from their particular tradition. So now I'd like to basically do a little bit of work about, just start basically talking about nightmares. There's different ideas about nightmares in shamanic dreaming. Michael Harner wrote an article about basically principles of shamanic dream work. And he basically feels that most nightmares are caused by the presence of unhelpful spirits. And that if you have a lot of nightmares, what that could indicate is that you may have soul loss. And because you don't have that power helping you, you're more of a target for unhelpful energies. I know a lot of people who are very experienced with shamanic dream work who might disagree with that, but I think for a certain amount of the time that there's truth to that. That the presence of nightmares can mean that not so happy energies are running around. But a lot of times, a nightmare can be a message from your body, it can mean unresolved emotions, it can mean these unhelpful spirits, or it can mean a warning, and this is another thing that Michael Harner talks about. Your dream, sometimes your helping spirits will send you a nightmare as a warning. So how can you tell which is which, since you may have nightmares for multiple different reasons? So I have kind of two different ways to do this. The first way is I kind of tap into the feeling and energy of the dream. If it's a warning dream, usually I feel strongly motivated to take action. And the fear subsides when I do. So in other words, once I take action, the nightmare kind of loses its hold. Sort of an unresolved emotional dream tends to feel like I'm sort of churning it around and around and around in my head, and I can kind of tell that there's emotions attached to it, and sort of anger and sort of stuff like that, or sadness or happiness or whatever. There's just this sort of dialogue going on back and forth. But the presence of unhappy spirits is a little bit unusual. It creates almost a feeling of dread or disempowerment. There's like a fog around you. It feels like fog. It almost makes it harder for me to use my energy field, to use my psychic abilities when there's the presence of these unhappy spirits. But sometimes you have dreams that are all over the place, they're combinations of things. So I basically decided that I was going to create a deck. And one of the things I do for myself and for clients is I muscle test with cards. So let's say I had a dream the other night. It was kind of a weird dream, a little bit nightmarish. So I'd like to see what this dream was trying to tell me. So I'm going to go in and ask now. And basically it says, I'm integrating self parts or soul parts through this dream. So that's one way that I help myself to figure out what kind of dream I'm having. And this deck has things like, this dream is an invitation to healing work. Another one is, I need shamanic healing. I am being called to my life purpose in this dream. Now, obviously, that probably wouldn't be a nightmare, but sometimes that's helpful. I need to ground or clear my environment or energy field. And we'll talk about that a little later. And then if it's a warning dream, this dream requires a reality check. Because a lot of times, whether it's a warning dream or not, you get a lot of precognitive psychic messages in dreams. And it can be very helpful to go in and say, is there something about this dream that could actually happen in the future that I need to know more about? And that can be true whether you are the kind of person who has literal clairvoyant dreams where they're like movies and the future happens just like the movie, or whether you're more like me and you dream in symbols. Either way, there's still reality checks that can go on in a dream. So you don't have to worry about whether the real thing happens exactly like it, because your own dream language is going to be unique to you. And one of the beautiful things about dreams is that no matter who you are, we're psychically connected to our dreams, because it's that part of our soul that's going into the other world. So what I'd like to do now, I'm going to take a breath now and see if there's any questions, but also I'd like to do a very quick practice after I answer questions. Hey, so interesting. I just realized I haven't had one in a long time. Oh, that's really cool. Good for you. Hi, Irma. How you doing? So, basically, I'm going to light some incense here. And then if you're in a place where you can sort of be quiet and calm for a few minutes, or if you're watching this on the replay, I'm going to basically do a dream reentry journey for all of us. And what you're going to do is I'm going to rattle for a few minutes. I'll do a little whistling at the beginning, and then you'll just hear the rattle. And then what I want you to do is just imagine a scene from a dream that you'd like to know more about. And just go in with one of your helping spirits or guides and see if you can find anything useful. So I'm going to go ahead now and start that. begin to come back into the room. If you want, move your fingers and toes. Take a deep breath. And when you're ready, open your eyes. And what I like to do when I do this kind of work is I just rub my hands together and I just place them on my heart, on my belly, on my legs, and anywhere I may be feeling stress. Just to kind of let myself know I'm back in the room, back in my body, not in the other world anymore. So I hope that any one of you who try this have a positive experience. You can do this with any dream. You can put on a drumming tape or have someone else drum for you. Or you can even do it yourself while drumming. The important thing is to just recreate the image of the dream you want to go into and go in with your helping spirits and your question. So, the first part of nightmares that I want to talk about is emotional integration. So, one of the things that people do with this kind of nightmare or upsetting dream is they do what we just did, a dream reentry. And let's say you have a dream where you have a fight with somebody or, some crazy thing happens and you want to understand more about it. You can do what we just did with either a rattle, drum, or you can whistle, whatever you can do that will not distract you so that you can really move into the dream. And basically go in with your helping spirits, your guardian animal spirit, your guides, anyone that you trust, and just go into the dream. And you can even ask a simple question like, what does this dream mean? Or why was this person talking to me like this? What is this trying to tell me? And there's a lot of ways that you can find out more about what the dream means and go to a deeper level. Even find out if there's an action that you need to take based on this kind of work. This is something that Robert Moss teaches a lot in his books, The Dream Teacher. And basically, it's kind of like taking dream reentry, which is like a psychological skill, and adding shamanic journeying to it. So in a way, if you can do this, you can journey. The other thing it does is it's an excellent skill to learn if you want to remember your dreams. I've gone in with a piece of a dream, like I remember like one scene of the dream. And when you go in this way, you can actually remember more of it, even if it's like a couple more things. And sometimes even the dream will change and kind of go into a new direction and give you even more information, which is really exciting. So all of this can help to to balance your emotions, to tell you how to work with your emotions, to tell you where you need to set boundaries. Because sometimes nightmares that are emotional integration dreams are really about setting boundaries. It can tell you what's important to you. It can tell you if you need to grieve something. So it's really helpful that way. It's absolutely essential if you've received a shamanic healing or a shamanic initiation of any kind. Because there's always going to be a lot of sort of reorienting your energy body after you go through something like that. And I'm just going to talk a little bit throughout this talk about some of my own dreams. After a soul retrieval that I received, I dreamed of myself as a very healthy 22-year-old with a box of oil pastels, which is a type of drawing tool. When I was in college, I was an art student, and I abandoned it later in life because of a series of traumas and illness. And in my dream, I went back into this with a dream reentry journey, and I asked the me, who was this returned soul part, to basically paint with the oil pastels. And a lot of really cool things started to happen. I did this more than once. And basically what started to happen is the dream changed. That part of me became stronger and more confident. I actually started to get better. I had had an injury, a chronic injury. I had an undiagnosed illness for a couple of decades. And I was actually able to do more writing eventually. And eventually I was able to go back to doing art again. So even though the physical healing took a long time, the psychological and emotional integration happened much more quickly. And I've heard many people say that if you do a soul retrieval, this is like one of the best ways to get the most out of it, is to like, to go in and dialogue with the different soul parts, or dialogue with the different parts of yourself. And dreaming is like a fabulous way to do this that I guess ever since Jung, people have, even in the West, have been aware of, that this is a good idea. So I'm going to take a moment here and see if anyone's... this worked really well for popping up symbols and showing how they were connected, relevant. Oh, good. Yeah, that's like... I think that's like one of its best things, is it like takes a little piece of the dream and brings it into this world. And in so much of shamanic work or animistic work, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bridge the other world and this world, and send energy back and forth. And I think the dream reentry process is kind of a nice way to do that. That's relatively simple. The other thing is the next category of nightmares are shadow dreams. Now, shadow dreams are kind of tricky because they're aspects of yourself that you don't recognize. They can be both positive and negative. The really great thing about shadow is that there's a lot of power and energy there that once you integrate it can make your life a lot better. The not so great thing about shadow dreams is that becoming aware of things you're not conscious of can be uncomfortable. And for that reason, sometimes I avoid it, other people avoid it. It's just really natural. So dreaming can be a powerful ally in helping to get to know these dreams. So what I use is an obsidian mirror. I later found out that other people do this as well. I think there's some Mexican people who work in a Mexican tradition that do this. And I feed it with moon water. And basically I take the obsidian mirror into, like, I put it under my pillow. And when I'm doing that preparation, that sort of half asleep part that I was telling you about earlier, I go in with my helping spirits and I go through the obsidian mirror. Because the obsidian mirror isn't just a mirror, it's also a helping spirit. So it's in the other world as well as in this world. And so I go through that obsidian mirror, and when I do, it shows me something about myself. Now, everything it shows me isn't like some awful thing. So, and even when it is, there's a great deal of power. So there are some kind of animistic or maybe sort of shamanic practices that actually where you can engage this through the dream or with working with your dreams. One of the practices that Charlie Morley teaches, and I don't know if this is Tibetan or not, is where you see this horrible shadow figure that's black and ugly and awful, and you basically run up to it and hug it. And what happens is you merge with it, and a lot of great energy and wonderful things happen this way. That's something that he teaches Tibetan dreamers and lucid dreamers to do. There's another way of working, which is based on a woman named Angelise Arian, who wrote a book called The Fourfold Way. And if you've ever heard of the medicine wheel, where there's 4 directions and there's like maybe animals or ideals attached to each wheel, she also has shadow parts that are attached to each of the directions. So the shadow parts might be victim, liar, martyr. And there's a woman named Christina Pratt and another teacher named Alberto Violdo who do a lot of work with their shamanic students in understanding and working with their shadow parts so that they can kind of dismantle the self or the persona that we build so that we'll be acceptable to people. And it's the thing that like is always kind of getting in our way. So I'll kind of give you an example of how this worked in my life. I was kind of blocked with my practice, and I couldn't figure out why. And I listened to a series of webinars that Christina Pratt did, and basically it was like a series of like 4 journeys that you did working with your shadow. And so I went in with my obsidian mirror, and I had a dream. I asked to have a dream about my shadow. And the dream that I had was that there was this train that was going to Machu Picchu. It's a luxury train. It's a real train. And on it was this beautifully dressed, perfectly, completely phony, but like perfectly dressed, like everything beautifully done doll that was stuck to the front of the train. And then inside the train, there was this conductor. And the conductor had put on this devilish mask, and he was dancing around the inside of the train. Well, I woke up, and I instantly knew, like, at least part of what the dream was trying to tell me, because I actually had experienced that train. I'd been on that train when I was lucky enough to travel to Peru, and I'd actually seen the conductor do that dance. And I realized that what it was trying to tell me was that I was so worried. I was trying so hard to do a good job, to be perfect, to be spiritual, to honor my path, to be respectful, that I'd sort of like merged into this phony perfectionistic doll, and I needed to like merge with that sort of devilish fun conductor. So I went in and did a dream journey, where I went in and merged with the conductor. And afterwards, I noticed that it took a little while longer. I had to also do some work with healing my ancestors. But I began to notice that part of me began to find my own sense of what I was doing. And I wasn't quite as invisible or as much of a disciple as I had been in the past. Which, well, it's really good to have respect for your teachers. It's dangerous to... It's not good. It's a shadowy thing. But it kind of also says that that there's something that you're wanting to do, but maybe your persona is preventing you from doing it. So I'm probably saying something that's confusing, and I don't mean to be. So I'm going to see if I can find my... I might not be able to find them. I have cards that I've done for that also. I can't find them right now. But basically, those cards say things like... Oh, no, here they are. Like, let's say I wanted to draw about that dream. So here it says, Warrior Shadow Self, Invisibility, Believe in Myself and My Unique Power. So it says invisibility is the shadow self. The medicine is to believe in myself and my unique power. But that can't happen until I become aware of the shadow pattern and try to see in my own life where it's showing up. So, where was I being invisible? Where was I hiding? That was what that dream was trying to tell me. Where was I not having enough fun? Where was I trying to be too perfectionistic and have like a false self? So that, like, the dream can show you all kinds of things. And did I enjoy finding out that, like, that I was disconnected like this and having a perfectionistic false self? No. Did I enjoy, like, realizing that I needed to connect more with, like, this sort of devilish, fun thing? No, because I want to, it's not fun to find out things about yourself, but it is fun in the long term. Excuse me. At least this has been my experience with shadow work. And that obsidian mirror and that kind of nightmare has been invaluable to me to go forward. It's been just incredibly helpful. The last kind, well, actually there's two more, is contact with unevolved beings. This is, okay, there's a lot of people who talk about something called sleep paralysis. I personally have not experienced this. The closest I've ever come to it is I used to have these nightmares where I would literally dream that I was being held down while people tickled me. This used to happen to me when I was a young child, and I couldn't move. But it wasn't like the same exact symptom as people report with sleep paralysis. But it is a problem, and it actually shows up sometimes with people who have a gift for lucid dreaming or even shamanic dreaming. And while there is a physiological explanation, in some cultures it is thought that you're having contact with unevolved spirits. So And certainly what I can say about contact with unevolved spirits is that you're going to wake up the next day filled with this kind of dread, fear. You're slower, you're cloudy. It's just hard to take action. It's just not good. And there's a couple things that you can do that. You just feel disempowered. The first thing I like to do, and I do this with all kinds of nightmares, is this is a practice that Robert Moss teaches, is just once you've kind of understood at least some of the message of the dream, just go into the bathroom and spit the dream out. You can do it like before you brush your teeth. And you're just literally bringing some of that heavy energy out so it's not in your body anymore. The second thing I try to do is I practice clearing my aura and sleeping space. Now, one of the easiest way to do this is with sound. If you have a rattle, a drum, a Tibetan bowl, you can go into areas where it feels stuck. If you're a feeler, you'll just feel the energy feels horrible in these places, or the energy in your body feels stuck. If you're if you're clairaudient, the bowl or the rattle will get dull, or the drum will get dull in these places or in your body. So you can kind of just go in and just rattle really quickly or drum really quickly in these places, and it breaks up the energy, and it really does help. Afterwards, you can bless it with sacred smoke, like if you like to smudge, or you can use agua de Florida. There's a very elaborate process that Itzhak Beery teaches to cleanse your house if you want to do that. But a lot of the time, it's not really necessary to do all of that. Every now and then I do that because I think it just helps in general. And if you have a serious problem, then I would definitely do it, yeah. But just to get started, if you don't want to do anything that elaborate, just using sound and smoke and your intent can make a huge difference in both your environment and your aura. Because if helping spirits are coming in, they have to get in past the immune system of your house. And if your house doesn't have good energy and can't protect itself, and your space can't protect itself, it's much easier for them to come in. There's also the problem of me letting them in. I had a teacher, he was Peruvian, and he would say this about everything. Like if you got a cold, or if you had a problem with unhealthy energy, he would say, or if you had boundary issues, he would say, you don't let it in. Like, he was like that about everything. And basically, he and some of my other teachers taught us to do practices to begin to see how we were letting it in. Where do we open the door to these unhappy energies to come in? And so I had some dreams about this when I was kind of working on more of a warrior path at that time. And I had a dream where my guardian animal spirit would let me know about this recurring dream character that was a witch. And the witch, was always sort of like a being with heavy energy. And the orca, or my other animal spirits, would always come in and basically want me to do something to fight the witch. Sometimes I fought them with Aikido or other types of martial arts, which, I barely know how to do Aikido. But in my dream, I could do it. Other times, there was another dream where I was on a roof, and one of my helping spirits, it was icy, and one of my helping spirits, we were all playing hockey, and my helping spirit was teaching me how to run into the other hockey players. and they were running into me, and there was some kind of thing about energy fields that was getting worked out this way. So even if your dream isn't literally one about here's where you let in the heavy energy, those kind of dreams are ones where the helping spirits are kind of helping you to figure out how to set psychic boundaries. Because in that way, hopefully, we all become much less attractive to unhealthy spirits and more attractive to healthy spirits. So let me just take a break here. Marta Lynn. Hey, Carol! Not confusing. That was great. Really useful to get to hear about the whole process. Oh, good, good. Erica. Yes, that's happened to me after dreaming. I was being held down while another shadow just stood by watching. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that, I think that experience happens to people maybe, I think some people have full-on sleep paralysis, but there might be like a continuum, going back and forth into that. I'm not sure because, like I said, I'm not an expert about that. But after listening to other people talk about their experiences, I do think there's some dreams that sort of have a little bit to do with that. So the last category of nightmares that I want to talk about are warning dreams. And these are ones where your energy field's great, your environment's great, you're not working through emotional conflict, you just have a nightmare. And these can be both individual and collective. So you can have dreams about catastrophes, and then you hear about something bad happening in another part of the world. You can have a dream that warns you that you need to do something or something bad's going to happen. You wake up really scared. As I've mentioned before, with these dreams, usually it's almost like your helping spirits are going, move, take action, hurry. And so the more I make a plan and take action, the more the fear goes away, the more that sense of urgency, like something has to be done now. And in some ways, that is the difference between that kind of dream and more of the unhappy spirit dream. The dreams where I feel like I have to take action now are, they tend to be feel more empowered. Like I have support, So I'll just give you sort of like a really low-key example of this. I've had trouble with getting sick in the winter, like just picking up on viruses and stuff like that. So I used to dream a lot about elderberry or elderberry syrup or elderflowers. And I would wake up and I'd think, oh, I should do something about my immune system. And then I would forget, and then I get sick. So finally, I've learned to trust these dreams that my helping spirits are trying to warn me. And I try to take action on them now. And that's like just sort of a simple, very silly warning dream, that low-key warning dream that's helped me to avoid a problem, a future problem. And so a lot of these are kind of like precognitive dreams. And a lot of people don't like having the collective ones because you don't feel like there's anything you can do about it. Recently I've started studying some of Cindy Dale's work again, and she does have a practice where you can send healing to yourself through your helping spirits and then ask that healing be sent to whatever place you dreamed about. And so in that way, you can honor your clairvoyant insight without feeling like, oh, there's nothing I can do about this, which is just not a good feeling. So let me just talk for a few minutes finally about ways, now that we've protected our spirit, how do you heal your soul in the dreamscape? So one of the things that's really powerful about dreaming is that it's a huge part, or can be a huge part, of soul retrieval. And Robert Moss came up with a really interesting way for people to do their own soul retrievals called soul recovery. And in this process, it kind of has two pieces. There's a dream that you have where you dream about yourself as a younger person when the trauma happened. And then there's going into the dream again, either through a dream reentry or through conscious dreaming, to basically bring healing to that soul part and to eventually merge with it and bring it back. This kind of does a lot of good for two reasons. The first thing it does is it avoids two really huge problems that can happen with soul retrieval when you have it done by another practitioner. The two problems that happen with soul retrieval, and why usually when you're trained to do soul retrieval they wait until you've got pretty strong skills with journeying, is because a couple of things can happen with soul retrieval. One, you can bring back the wrong thing. You can think you're bringing back a soul part, and you're actually bringing back some other thing that doesn't belong in that person. And so the dream of the previous, the dream that you have of yourself as a person, where you recognize the soul wound, kind of solves that problem because of your psychic connection to the soul part. So that's like a tracking problem. The second problem that can happen with a dream is that, with the soul retrieval, is that the soul part isn't ready to come back. It can either be very happy where it is and it doesn't want to come back, or it can be unhappy and attached to other very negative things, or in a very tricky place that you don't like. You want to make sure that the soul part is healed and empowered before you bring it back. And so that's why when you do this kind of soul recovery, dreaming, or dream reentry, you're going back in with your helping spirits into the dream where the trauma occurred. Your helping spirits are sending healing. You may be talking to the soul part, but basically the soul part comes back when it's ready to come back. You're not forcing it to come back, and it's healed and ready. And you can tell because the soul part looks different, feels brighter, the energy may be brighter, it just looks happier or more excited, or something about it signals to you, yeah, this is good. And when you merge with it, there's a feeling of like, it's like something beautiful and precious that was lost got returned to you. It's an amazing feeling. It also needs integration because it's like you're a different person after one of these dreams. I am putting a short, well, no, actually, I'm putting the second day of a previous webinar I did on soul recovery as a link into the free gift in case you'd like to know more about the process. And in that video, I talk about what it's like when instead of seeing yourself as a younger child or adult, you see yourself as an animal, because sometimes the imagery comes up that way, or at least it did for me. The other thing is that you may have symbolism in the dream that relates to the shamanic universe. You may see images or helping spirits that relate to your cosmology, or it can be really basic stuff like upper world. The soul part is in a really celestial place filled with wonderful beings. Middle world, it's everyday activity. Lower world, it may be with animals or plants or with ancestors or, underground somehow. For some people, the images may be literal, like you're in a house, and the upstairs is the upper world, the downstairs is the middle world, and the basement is the lower world. So it can work like that. The other thing that you can experience sometimes is if you have a cosmology that relates to the four directions, you may dream in the initial dream, the dream where you have the wound, you may dream about one of the directions. Sometimes this has to do with symbols that relate to the directions, animals, colors, whatever it is that, deities, however you see the directions. But sometimes, like, it's literal. Like, I dreamed one time about myself as a younger child in a power struggle. It was very disempowering for me. And I literally saw the book West, a book that had the word West in the title. And so that's how I knew I was dealing with issues that have to do with the West, which in some cosmologies can relate to physical health or things needing to end, or sometimes letting go of things, grief, loss, stuff like that. So that was kind of interesting. The other thing that you may use dream work for is to dream before you do rituals. So before I meet with a client for the first time, I may ask my helping spirits for a dream to let me know if there's something in particular I need to focus on. I also can do it sometimes before a healing ritual, so I can see exactly what's going on. And so I'm doing it sort of as a substitute for a shamanic journey or another kind of divination. So it's now been an hour. I'm going to go a little bit over, and I'm sorry not to be more mindful of time, but I just want to get a little bit of this finished up, and thank you to all of you for sticking around. Basically, one of the ways that you can go into the dream state is you can use chanting. It's very common in animistic and shamanic practices to have a power song. And this is something that I did a video about in the Patreon that my sister and I have. And they're relatively easy to create, and they very much can bond you with your helping spirits. So you can chant a mantra or a power song while you're going into that hypnagogic state while you're recreating the dream where the wound happened, and it will actually change the dream. It will actually add healing energy to the dream. You can bring in your ritual objects that you use for dreaming. That will also help. There's a lot of different ways to create that healing where the soul part changes and wants to come back. Another thing that you can do, and this is something you can do with other people, is you can do something called dream walking. This is something that you need to do with permission, but you can basically go in with permission and meet in the dream world someplace. And you can bring in your healing, helping spirits, and maybe either look at what's happening to the person or do healing on the person. Sometimes I do more of the healing when I'm in that sort of half asleep place, and then I'll go into a dream. Other times it's more, it's a little bit half and half. It does seem to have a relationship to that hypnagogic state. The other thing that's interesting about it is that you can compare notes the next day, and often you may see exactly the same imagery, or you may see things that are very similar, especially about the important stuff. So that's kind of interesting. In one dream I did with another person where I was working with them, I kept seeing an entity that was attached to the person's back, and the helping spirits kept trying to basically extract the entity. And the person, when she was dreaming, she saw something attached to her back too, which I thought was kind of interesting, that we both saw that. The last thing I was going to talk about are earth empaths. Earth empaths are people who, like a very dramatic example would be people who dream of catastrophes happening to the earth. But they're basically people who pick up on the sadness of the earth. The earth is suffering because of environmental degradation, and there are people who have nightmares every single time, like a bunch of trees get cut down, or animals are killed, or just things like that. They're psychically connected to this. And because they don't have control over their gift, it feels more like a curse than a blessing. So there's two different ways that I've tried to work with that. For myself and for people in my family, I've done something called an earth bundle, where I basically just took a blanket or something and put stones in it that were blessed and intended to help, and then just prayed over it or blessed it, and then you can sleep with that bundle close to you at night. And that can help a little bit to kind of, what the stones do is they become like a go-between, because what you need is, you need some distance. If you're going to be getting all this information, you just need a way for it to not completely impact your emotional body. The other thing I've done with people is a little bit of candle magic mixed with plant spirit healing. And the simplest way you can do this is just with sweet basil, because sweet basil really helps with unhappy spirits. So just imagine this is a candle. You just take the basil, rub it on the candle. You take another leaf of basil, rub it between your hands, breathe into it, think of your intention, and blow. And then just burn the candle, and it will send positive energy into your environment and help a little bit with that sort of heaviness that happens when you're the kind of person who can feel the earth's suffering when so many people are so disconnected and can't. This is also, that basil candle thing I do for prosperity magic too. It's kind of nice and very simple. So I think I'm going to end it here and just ask a few questions, answer questions if there are any. Hey Mario, how you doing? Hey Lynn, I had a soul retrieval done and didn't know they were going to do that. I was very tired afterwards. Oh yeah. I mean, it's like, soul retrieval is amazing, but there's work involved in integrating it. And even in traditional cultures, the work might be that you go to a place and leave an offering. it's never like the person does a healing on you and that's it, like you're done, you know. So there's always some part of you that has to integrate it. So yeah, definitely, it makes sense that you would be tired afterwards. That's a really great point. Oh, that helped me so much. I said, oh, I'm so glad. That's great. Yeah, yeah. Jessica's in our Patreon. That's awesome. Yeah. So I'd like to talk a little bit before I finish up, and thank you guys for sticking it out with me. I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the things that I'm offering. A couple of them are free. And the first is that my sister and I have a wonderful free group on Facebook called Animistic Earth Medicine. And all earth honoring traditions are welcome. And we also do our own webinars sometimes. And all of you are invited. And some of you are already members. The other thing I'm offering is a free gift, a PDF. It's basically, it covers all of what we talked about. It has that affirmation for the cord cutting in it. It also has links to some very short videos about some of the training videos that I talked about. It has a link to the second day of my shamanic, the soul recovery webinar. And it also has a link to last year's webinar that was kind of, that this one is kind of going into more detail about, in case you wanted to see that one. And it also has an invitation to join our Patreon as well as our free group. The Patreon, if you like some of the videos, the free training videos, the one that we do about using a dream crystal, or going into the dream through an energy center, that are linked to the free gift, you are welcome to join us at Shamanic Earth Medicine. It's our Patreon. We have a wonderful Facebook group with wonderful people like Jessica, and we do live streams in there and just try to figure out what people want and teach them a little bit about how to integrate more shamanic skills and animistic skills into their everyday life. And most of the people in there have a very strong earth honoring tradition, but there's a bunch of different people with a bunch of different traditions. So it's nice. And also that's true of our free group. A lot of different people from all over the world, very different traditions, which makes it kind of fun. And lastly, I am going to raffle off a free half-hour session with me. I love doing coaching, and this gives you a chance to see if you might enjoy working with me in this way. All you need to do to enter is please sign up for the free gift, which I will be adding after the webinar, and also just in the comments, just put one thing that you got out of it. If you've already done that, you're good. So I just want to say thank you all very much. Thank you to Christina for making space for us to do this. Thank you to everyone who's done a presentation or going to do one. I'm now going to have time to catch up on everyone's presentation. And most of all, thank you all who are watching and watching the replay for your good energy. So I'm going to close Sacred Space and thank my helpers. If you can, just close your eyes for a minute. Thank you all, and I hope you have a wonderful solstice. Blessings.